subject is entitled 5th of July, UFOs the next step. I wonder what he means. Well, Colin Phillips became interested in this mysterious subject as a schoolboy. His father also had a great interest in UFOs. He believes UFOs are physical objects constructed by human-like beings. Colin joined this organisation in 1959 as a sightings officer, and he was to become the vice president and eventually the president. That's of UFO Research Queensland. I think it was called the Flying Saucer Research Bureau. That's right. He retired in 1988, and he listed his interest as everything except sport. Colin believes that you can't understand life on other planets unless you understand life on this planet first. Would you please make welcome Mr. Colin Phillips.
Good afternoon all. That doesn't mean to say, of course, that I have sorted it all out in this life, on this planet that I'm working on. I'm rather pleased to see not only a good audience, but an epidioscope here. If I'd known, I might have brought you a few more pictures. But I've been playing with this thing, and I think I might be able to do something. Wait a minute, we've got a different set of pictures here than we had before. That was the one I had before. Great, thank you. Okay. I do actually have for you all here printed copies of the notes of this, so before you leave you're more than welcome to take one off the corner there of the notes, okay? They include also a list of recommended reading based on the books that I have read. There's about 91 books here, and some of them I've got crosses alongside because I didn't like them very much. Some of them are recommended reading, okay? So you might be interested in that. I subtitled this the 5th of July because we're all about to be Hollywoodised with the 4th of July, and from what I've heard, maybe there won't be anything of Earth left after this movie. But I don't know the ending, but anyway, I think there will be life after the 4th of July. And indeed, as there was life after Close Encounters of the Third Kind, which was supposed to have heralded all the exciting answers to UFOs, and which never really did. But it was a nice breakthrough because the aliens started to be nice people from that on. But I think with the fact of the 4th of July, we're back with the nasties again, okay? I don't believe that any more visits by UFOs to this planet is actually going to make any difference to our attitude to UFOs and our understanding of what it's all about. There's still enormous vested interests to say otherwise. And in my notes I've left you here a copy of the curious case of Dr. Menzel. How many have heard of Dr. Menzel? A few, okay. Well, he was a scientist, a very famous American scientist, who actually wrote an anti-UFO book in the early days. And this little article is not very complimentary, even though it was written by his peers, because indeed it's since been showed that he did lie. He was working for the American government and the CIA, and therefore was in fact asked to write this book to put us off this thing. Now, my mother always taught me, and my sister, that lying was in fact about the worst thing that you could do. That you could steal from people and they would know that they'd been robbed. When you lie, you deprive them of the truth. And it's the reason after 40 years that we're still all sitting here talking about UFOs is because there has been a lot of professional lying. And anyone who works for the government, and especially the military, and have signed official secret documents and handles all this information, you must immediately presume that most of them, many times, will be lying. And that's why we're all in such a mess. If they'd stolen from us, it would have been okay. Menzel was one of those, and so was Philip Klass. How many have heard of Philip Klass? Right, okay. Classical disinformation. Since been found that he was also on the payroll of the CIA, and I've got an enclosure here to support that for those of you who may be interested. Dr. Alan Hynek actually was perhaps a nice straight guy, but he never told us anything new. We never learned one new piece of information in all the times that Hynek was on the horizon that we didn't already have. It did tend to play down, in fact, some of the better sightings. I think it's rather interesting that there's all this big push to start looking for microorganisms. In a program called SpaceOrg, in 1956-58, the American astronomer Sitton first found that the spectra of the Martian seas showed bands of absorptions characteristic of organic molecules. I did try and find you the printout of another article I had many years ago of microorganisms coming to Earth on meteors. So this new project that they have is suddenly discovering that microorganisms are from Mars. I suspect, in fact, is just part of promotion to get the space program stoked up again. After all, the walls come down, there's no such thing as an evil empire anymore, and one of the biggest industries on this planet is defence, and the space program is an alternative to that. So I think the reason why we're rushing off to Mars, or talking about getting some money to do that, is in fact for this reason, not because we've found that microorganisms, goodness me, we knew that ages ago. Where have these people been hiding? I'd like to make a couple of comments about the other planets. And one, actually, while I've got this in front of me, just in case I forget, there's only about 3 of these articles here. It's called New Water from Rock. And if you first read it, you might think, well, what the hell has this got to do with UFOs? But as I hinted at, or the kind man that introduced me hinted at, if you're going to become interested in UFOs seriously, you have to be interested in every facet of human life and every field of science and philosophy. And many, many years ago, a man came to Australia speaking about primary water. And I've spoken to quite lots of geologists and people, and I was saying, well, what's all this primary water? He was speaking on the ABC radio. And lo and behold, as fate would have it, my wife, who now runs a second-hand bookshop, every time she has an interesting book in there, I sort of quickly scan the index, and lo and behold, I found this wonderful book, an article on primary water, new water from rock. And what this is all about is that for many centuries, and especially in early American history, people were digging holes into rock and suddenly getting all this water, especially in silver mines. And it wouldn't matter how much and how big of pumps they put on, they could never pump the water out. And the principle here is that we're not dealing with water that actually exists in the mountains, or in fact is underground. What actually happens is, if you can get the right rock, and you get the right hole into it, you let the air into it, and suddenly a screaming noise occurs, and water is created at that point. And when this happens, the water is not only pure, it comes at a constant flow forever and ever and ever, and indeed it's always the same temperature. And there are, as this article outlines, as a result of this man's research, at least a few cities in the world that currently acquire their water from this mechanism. Now, what has this got to do with UFOs? I believe that if we know that this can happen here on Earth, and there's very good reasons, of course, why it's not being used very much. I mean, goodness me, if you can get water this way, how are you going to get funding to big dams? I mean, this guy just caught hell once he started proceeding with this. There's the big multinationals and the banks, they didn't want people able to supply plenty of water for each town without multi-billion-dollar dam projects. Certainly this is what we need in Australia. But if we go to the moon or Mars and those places which there isn't much sight of water on the surface, then maybe this is your water supply. We sort of sometimes get these funny stories about, well, if we get to Mars we might find some water in the rock. Well, anyway, here we are. new water from rock. So please only take one of these if you're genuinely interested, because there actually are only two. But the organisation may think to photocopy a few more if there's such a demand for it. The Mars program. Oh, can you hear me when I wander over here? Am I still online? Can you hear me? Back there? Okay, well, as you know, we actually sent 2 ships to the planet Mars, the Viking 1 and the Viking 2. And they told us lots of funny stories about it, and I think they cheated us enormously. This is actually a National Geographic magazine, January 1977, and it purports to tell us everything about the planet Mars. Now, when you look at these pictures, as you can roughly here, you'll see that they...
Colin, would you just check the image now and again, because it's glossy paper, you may have a shine.
Shine on it, yes. Yes, well, I don't think Mars was quite that shiny, actually. Doesn't do much for your hands, does it? Okay. Well, I have mentioned this before, but it certainly is a good example of how they lie, cheat and deceive us. Okay, so we were told that there's no life on the planet Mars. Well, you can well imagine this ship, which comes hurtling down through the Martian atmosphere. There's a picture of doing that here somewhere, a drawing I might add. They tell us that there's not much atmosphere on the planet Mars, so if that's true, why did they use this little parachute to aid and slow down the descent? And then finally put the retro rockets on, and then took pictures of the site where it landed. Well, that's more or less what you're looking. Well, I put it to you that if this little ship landed almost anywhere on Earth, with all those retro rockets blasting at 6,000 degrees, that's about what the picture you'd end up with. You can see it's all eroded away. They further cheated us by, if you have a look at that picture there, can you see if I can make that a bit bigger for you? How's that? See, I practiced at interval. Okay. This down here is a calibration to show you colour. Now, what they did was they actually put one of the lander's arms out, and then the camera was supposed to be adjusted so that the colours down the edge would mean that the people back here would know exactly what the colour of everything was there. But you see, they didn't do that, because when they adjusted these calibrations to be normal, it made everything look very nice and normal. It had a blue sky, but you can't have that. So you can see by the illustrations that they've given us here, everything is presented to give you the impression that it's all dry, barren, arid, and not very hospitable at all. Now, to propagate yet even further this idea that the planet is inhospitable, I can get this one up for you. This picture here, okay, it says, practicing a dig. A Viking lander at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory above extends its surface sampler over simulated Martian rocks, styrofoam, to scoop up simulated Martian soil, Earth sand. Okay, so they're telling you that that's what this is a picture of on Earth. But look what they've done. They've coloured it nice and orange to make sure that it looks inhospitable, even though that in fact is Earth soil. They landed in pretty barren, arid places too. I think if there was any life in that soil, after having those retro rockets blasting at it, when the little arm went out of the lander and looked into it to see if there's any microorganisms, I don't think there'd be any left. It'd all be cooked up, wouldn't it, really? I mean, it was a really dumb experiment when you think about it. If you did that here, you wouldn't get any better results. I've included this picture here too in amongst the... I'm not very good on this, am I? On my notes. This is the guys, rather stern-looking, miserable fellows. I'm glad they're not operating on me. They probably would have had a chance. They're putting this gadget, this is the little gadget that actually did the analysis. It's actually a very small laboratory that analysed the soil. Well, it was a bit of a waste of time. It was even more of a waste of time when you know this was, oops, I'm not pointing to it, that it was TRW, the company that put it all together, and that they were at one stage financial arm of the CIA. So they can do what they like into that controls there, and we wouldn't know what it's all about. So they're going to Mars. Will they find anything better? Well, I certainly hope so. But the thing is, are they going to tell us? My belief is they're not. But the real main point of my paper is that because there's been so much lying, it's unlikely that things are going to change unless a small group of people, scientists, technicians, who finally get so disgruntled that they blow the lid off it. And at long last, there may be a way they can do that by using the internet. Who knows? They can do it anonymously then. Any of you who are ever involved at all in whistleblowing, you really do need to know how to do it, because you'll ruin your whole career. But if you're going to blow the whistle, you have to tell everyone around the world at once, and tell everyone around the world that you've told everyone around the world, and you don't tell them that you told them all. Okay. Otherwise you're history. And many people don't know how to blow whistles properly. They think that spreading the truth around is a good idea. Well, it is for everyone else except you, the spreader. Okay. Before I depart, I'd like also to recommend this book, and I get quite disturbed when I see how many trashy books are about. This was privately published online here. The Truth About Venus and Mars by Daniel Ross. UFOs, the complete evidence from space. Anybody got a copy of this book? No. I think the Bureau's got one, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. Try and get a look at it if you can. It's an interesting picture, really, actually, of the moon. Once again, you can see the calibrated stick out here, which isn't as colourful as it might be, but you can see that the soil looks a little bit more normal than the stuff they showed us on Mars. Okay, well that's a really great book, and that's listed in amongst my notes. Okay, well you can all take a copy of the notes and probably make a lot more sense of that than my chatter. But do you have any questions? Come on, shoot me down, give me a hard time. That's a good idea.
Yeah. They did this before, didn't they? We couldn't shut them up.
Is that right?
No questions? None? One?
Yeah, I'm still intrigued in the water in the rock. What type of rock?
The rock, apparently, if my memory serves me correct, it's a long time since I read the article, the rock has to have a grain usually that comes up at a slight angle, and sometimes this guy used to drill on top of mountains to get it. So elevation's nothing whatsoever to do with it. Apparently when they were putting down a big building in, oh God, what's the name of that little island in New York? Manhattan. They were putting a building there, and they just got flooded out for the same reason. This water just kept coming, they couldn't see it all. So it's not unusual to happen in the world.
But it hasn't happened here in Australia, has it?
I don't know. He came to Australia, and I remember him talking on the radio years ago and said we should do it, but I don't know whether anyone ever has. You had a question?
Yes. What did you get it out of, the water?
Oh, that'd be telling, wouldn't it? I'm sorry, I can't tell you because I only copied the article. This article was actually called Icebergs or Water Off the Earth. It was a book about divining and all sorts of strange and interesting things. I'm really sorry I didn't keep a copy of that. I had hoped that my wife wouldn't sell the book, but she did. She sold it quicker than I expected.
Martin?
Colin, I'd like to comment on that because I got hold of a book called Water Divining, a lovely big fat book with the red cover. And the author of that book spoke, amongst other things, about primary water.
Right.
And when you spoke of it, I thought you were speaking about the same thing. But this man interpreted the water as being water which was trapped in rock at the time when this rock was formed and had been contained in the crust for many millions of years and was emerging through fissures in the rock for the first time. And it could emerge above sea level simply because the density of seawater is greater than fresh water. It could still be forced up above sea level. I didn't think that he was talking about water which came into appearance on the planet, having not existed the moment before it gushed out of the rock. You're talking about creation or something like that here.
Yes, we're talking about actually manufacturing water.
We'll get started out on that.
Well, that does happen to many mines. Some
On the planet.
Oh, yes, well, but certainly we can do a bit more water in Australia, couldn't we?
Is it a chemical process or an electronic process where they convert the rock to water, or is it some sort of almost supernatural phenomenon?
Oh, well, I know about the word supernatural.
Well, you know,
I guess maybe supernormal because we don't encounter it very often.
it's not where they sort of convert it to what's water, hydrogen, and oxygen.
Well, the explanation is that you can have a mountain and you can get more water out of the mountain than the volume of the mountain.
You kind of suggested that it's a catalyst which converts the oxygen, touching it into water.
That's right.
Is that the...
And that's why you hear the screaming noise. It's quite a noisy operation when it first happens. Feed into submission. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Colin.